All right, then if Nathan and Jamie, if you guys are good to go, we can get started.
All right.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to Breakout Room 2. My name is Kayla, along with Alexis. We are here moderating for Nathan and Jamie, who are going to lead you in this session about why and how to use a code repository. I do not know why or how to use a code repository, so I am personally looking forward to learning from these two. I work with them every day, and they're going to do a great job leading us off in this topic. Guys, ready to take it away?
Sure. Thank you, Kayla. Welcome, everybody. We've got a Slido that we're going to be using for this. It's different than the other Slido. If you were in the heated high Slido contest before. So if you join, use this number. I also put the link directly in Zoom if you want to click on that. I'm seeing a couple come through, so it looks like people are getting connected there.
Want me to pop it up, Jamie? You ready for that?
No, not yet. We'll come back to it in a second. I think we'll just do a quick introduction here. So this may look a little confusing. We're using Visual Studio Code to do our presentation here, so it's a little different. If you want to scroll down to the next slide here, Nathan. The title of our talk today and our demo is going to be why and how to use a code repository. So some of you might be using something already. Some of you might not be using it, and some of you might not know what that means. And so this talk's for all of you. But I think if you're already using GitHub and know everything about it, this might be a little slow for you. So either way, you're happy to ask questions. Maybe put them in the chat, and we can get to them at the end of the presentation if you have any. Or Nathan might be answering them while I'm going through the slides, or I can answer when Nathan's going through some demos later on. So I'll quickly introduce myself, and then we'll look at the poll results here. I'm Jamie Rowland. I work at Medtronic with Nathan, my manager. We're in a group called the Knowledge Center. I've been in the Knowledge Center about 11 years. I'm an IT technologist, which is kind of Medtronic speak for I use technology to solve problems. I've also been a FRC mentor for the Ahlstrom Falcons team, 25-25. And yeah, Nathan, you want to?
Yep, I'm Nathan Ahlstrom, and work in the Knowledge Center as a IT and knowledge management manager, and really hoping that our work, we're trying to connect people to people and people to information to get work done and cool things done, and really to help our patients. So great to have you all here.
Cool. Can you swap over to the poll real quick, and let's take a look. So looks like, yeah, 14% using one, 29% no, 57. You're in the right place. I think you'll learn something in this presentation. Hopefully, a couple things. So yeah, let's hop back into the presentation. We're going to use Slido throughout the rest of the presentation. I've got quiz questions, so we've got, I think, 12 questions throughout the presentation, and whoever gets the top score at the end is going to win a little prize. So it encourages you to stay and pay attention, and that there's going to be some trivia related to what we're asking or what we're presenting, and then some random things thrown in there too. So I hope you have fun with that. Also, you'll notice at the bottom of our slides here, we've posted the code that this presentation is using is out on GitHub. So if you are using GitHub already, the 14% of you, I guess that's probably one person since there are 7 votes. You can go out there, and there's a second prize. If you want to go and add your name to the last page of this presentation, there's a secondary prize for that. So put in a pull request, put your name in there. For those that don't know what that means, we'll get to it. So first off, look at this slide is what is a code repository? So in short, a code repository is a software tool to develop and maintain code. And there's many software tools out there. GitHub is the most recognized probably, but there's GitLab, Bitbucket, SourceForge. There's many of them. You won't find a shortage of software tools out there. And what they do is they hold your code no matter what your code is. So coding language agnostic means you can put Java in there, JavaScript, Python, PHP, LabVIEW, whatever you're working in, images, Word docs, and anything that's in a file, you can put into a code repository and have it be tracked It's for individuals or teams. Teams can be as small as 2 or as many as thousands. A code repository, a good code repository, lets you work in however your group is formed. So I think for FRC, it's pretty ideal to interact this way. You can do public or private code with code repositories as well. So if you're working for a company and your code is highly sensitive, you probably want a private repository. At Medtronic, we've got an enterprise version of GitLab, and so that's code that only Medtronic employees can see. If your goal is to open source or have your code available to anyone else in the world, public is probably the way to go. Or if you just want feedback, you want other people to help develop your code, public is a great option, and code repositories will work for both of those situations. All right, next slide here. So that's what it is. Why use it? Why not use a Word document and turn on version history and save a Word document multiple times and put notes in the gutters? That the reason you want to use a code repositories is it's made for saving code, and it has a great environment around it that lets you back up your code, have reversion history, allows for collaboration from multiple people, and you can access it from multiple devices. So when your code is stored in a central repository, you can get to it from your phone or your work computer and your school computer and your home laptop and whatever you need. You can collaborate with yourself or with other people from anywhere, and that's a huge benefit. The backup and revision history is very important. Quick anecdote, I was mentoring our team in a regional competition. This happens frequently between rounds. There was something that we wanted to work on. We wanted to tweak the autonomous section. Turns out we broke the code and the robot didn't work for the entire round. And so we got a big fat 0. Then it became time, okay, well, something went wrong. Let's go back to our working code from the previous round. At least we can get back to that. It wasn't saved anywhere. And so we had to figure out what caused the issue. Otherwise, we have to start from scratch. And as you know, during a competition, that's not when you want to be able to do that. So if you have a nice backup in your code repository, it's as easy as, flipping it back a version to something works and starting from there. Code repositories are great too because of the ability to document. You can leave tons of documentation either in the code itself or around the code, making it so that just because you wrote it doesn't mean that you'll understand it yourself, but there's a good chance that somebody else that didn't write the code won't understand it unless you leave some nice documentation telling them what you were trying to do, what the code is actually for, and how to run it, how to execute it, or deploy it, whatever notes you need in there. There's sharing features. So like I said, if you open source this, you can share it with other teams, you can share it with other companies, with other people, spin it off of alumni that used to be on the team, your coders, if they graduated, get them to check out your code on GitHub and say, come look at this, we need help. It's easy to license your code when you're using a code repository. So you can make it very clear in your repository, what is the intended use of this? You can set up a strict license so that people aren't allowed to use it for anything. They can view your code, obviously, but they won't be able to modify it or use it. Or you can set a very permissive license, open source it, and say anybody can take this code, do whatever they want with it, commercialize it, share it, whatever they want. And so there's lots of options with licensing that a code repository makes easy. And then this last one, I think this is kind of important for people in high school when you're applying to colleges or applying for an internship or eventually a job, a career somewhere. You can use your GitHub repositories as a portfolio. I've seen this done very effectively. You can build your resume because like an artist would have a portfolio of all their paintings, you can have your code out visible to employers so they know what they're going to get if they hire you. This is the kind of work that you're capable of. So what did I miss? Any notes, Nathan?
I don't know, GitHub's free. So
Yeah, GitHub's
there's
free.
a school option possibly that like your team could take advantage of.
I think we'll talk about GitHub, the benefits of GitHub on the next slide. We've got a couple of quiz questions. Nathan, you want to bring up the quiz and we can start? So on that same Slido as the poll, question number 1, you've got 20 seconds. What are some of the benefits of using a code repository? I'm going to start out pretty easy. So hopefully if you're paying attention. All right. You got it. All right. So all of the above, obviously, I think I addressed all of these. So issue tracking maybe is one I didn't, but yeah, go ahead.
If you want to join, if you haven't joined yet, you can hop either QR code from your phone or just open a browser to Slido and put in the numbers here.
Yeah, from your phone, from your laptop, anything. And you can join late, still answer questions.
Yep.
Not out of it yet. I've got a couple more questions here. Next question. Which of the following is not a well-known code repository management platform? Got Bitbucket, Codify, GitHub, GitLab, SourceForge. All right, let's see. The answer is Codify. I made that up. It probably is a company, but it's not a code repository company that I know of. So
too fast to Google.
Yeah. 20 seconds isn't enough, I guess. Next question. This will be the last one for this section. What is the correct order of operations for solving equations? We've got some math kids in the crowd, I hope, and this is probably an SAT question at some point. All right. Looks like we got 90%.
Wow, pretty impressive.
Here's our leaderboard. We got John L's got 3 for 3. So congratulations. It's still young. There's 12 questions total. So remember the winner at the end will get a prize. So let's hop back into the presentation.
All right.
All right, we've talked about what it is, why to use it. I'm going to talk about GitHub. Why pick GitHub over the other ones? It's the most popular source code management software for code repositories. It's easy to learn, easy to use. It integrates seamlessly with whatever you're using, Windows, Mac, Linux. If you're using something else, that's incredible, and it probably works with that too. It's mostly free. Nathan was mentioning this. It's in the notes here. There is a student discount. So if you're a First Robotics Club, and your mentor can apply for an educator discount. And so with GitHub, there's a couple different options for like pricing models. There's the free option, which honestly does 90% of what you would ever want to do in GitHub. There's the GitHub team model, and that's what you get for free as a FRC team. And then there's a GitHub for companies. And so you probably don't want to be that's the big money. But there's no real difference between team and corporate edition. So it's just something that you might want to look into as an FRC team, because there's a lot of cool benefits there. And then there's tons of features beyond just the code repository, which is the focus of our talk. So the next slide talks about some of those or some of the fancy things that you can do other than code repositories. So there's project boards to plan activities. If you're familiar with like agile project management, styling, or Kanban boards, this is a really cool way to do that. You can say, here's all the tasks that we're working on, or here's all the tasks that we've completed. Here's all the tasks that have issues, and you can organize them right in your GitHub repository, which is really handy. You can use wikis to do documentation on pretty much anything. There's issue tracking. So if you notice there's an issue with your code or a bug, this is a perfect way to track it right inside of GitHub where your code exists. You can push an issue into your project boards to make it a task for somebody, which is really handy as well. There's more advanced things like automated testing and workflows. You can automatically deploy your code from GitHub into your robot. We're not going to talk about that because it's pretty advanced and would take more than our time. There's also free web hosting for if you want to marketing your FRC team. So you can create a free hosted website in GitHub. So check that out. If you want a custom domain name, it works with that. Great. So there's a lot of them out there. If you just do a quick Google search, you'll find them. That's the topic for another presentation, but it's a really good option if you're trying to save money on web hosting and don't want to pay GoDaddy or whatever the options are out there. All right, so a couple more quiz questions. Nathan, you want to bring up the quiz? These are kind of around GitHub. How much does GitHub cost for FRC teams? See some results coming in. I think this one was too easy. The correct answer, of course, is free. You do have to, I think, submit evidence or have a school account when you sign up. So make sure you read into that. There's a link at the end of our presentation that talks about it a little bit. All right, next question. Any code found on GitHub can be freely accessed, used, changed, and shared in modified or unmodified form by anyone. True or false? This is kind of a tricky question, honestly. If the question was any open source code, the answer would be true. But because you can pick your license in GitHub, it's actually false. If you have a license that says nobody can modify this code, you can view it, but you can't modify it, the answer is then false here. So just because you see another FRC team put their code out there does not mean you can just go grab it and use it and alter it. Well, first of all, that violates the rules of FIRST, I'm pretty sure. But if that was the case anyway, you wouldn't be able to, unless they say you can. All right, here's a random question. What company acquired GitHub in 2018? This is a pretty major acquisition at the time. I mean, still is. Has a lot of interesting implications. And it's a company that you don't often associate with open source. So it looks like the crowd prevailed. It is indeed Microsoft. So yeah, not who you would think would own something like GitHub, which is mostly free. And here we go. John's still on top. Somebody's got to knock him off his perch. He's quick too.
John. Impressive.
So here we go, back to the presentation. All right, so getting started with GitHub, you sign up for an account on github.com. Like we said, have a coach or a mentor apply for the GitHub team plan. And we recommend using a team email address to sign up. If you use like a mentor's email and they move on, it's hard to get it back. So if you can use like an email address that the school that you're at or the organization owns, that's probably a good idea. It's probably best practice to include FRC in your team number and your team name and your GitHub account name so others can find it easy. And it's obvious that it belongs to an FRC team. This is my recommendation is to create a new repository and make it public each year. So every year there's a new game, there's a new robot, have a new repository. Don't put it all in one big file system. You know, you don't want to lob all your code together into one giant repo. You want multiple. So name it Robot 21 or whatever the name of your robot is. My team used to always name the robot, but right when the game was announced, they'd have ideas for what the robot would be, and then they would name it. So use that for your repo. Have fun with it, and then share the repository URL with team members so that they know how to find it, how to access it. And then what we recommend is that students sign up for individual GitHub accounts so that they can star it, watch the code changes, fork the repository, interact with it. You can sign up with your student email, just knowing that when you graduate, you're probably going to lose access to that account. So if you want to use like a personal email address, I think that's fine. Just make sure you're reading the terms of GitHub and agree to them. But it's kind of important to have that one account that sets everything up and then different accounts for all the different contributors. And let's keep going, scrolling through. Yeah, so then the team account that owns the repository can go in and grant access to the collaborators on the team, which would be your programmers or the whole team, depending on how you're using GitHub. If you're doing the project boards, you might want everybody to be a collaborator. So when you are a collaborator, you get access to the wiki, project boards, ability to merge code in, and pretty much everybody gets the same permissions when they're a collaborator. So the other thing you can do is install Git SCM tools. This lets you do command line interface for Git, which is how I use Git on a daily basis. I think once you get familiar with Git and how it works in the browser, you're going to be a lot more comfortable doing it right from your IDE, right from Visual Studio Code, or wherever you're writing your code. You want to just push the code right from there into your repo. So those work really well. There's a lot of instructions on that link if you click it. All right, I think we've got a couple live demos. So Nathan, I'm going to hand it over to you. And real quick, how are we doing on time, Kayla?
It is 3:38, so you've got about, what, 10 minutes?
Is that
Decent
include
time for
Q&A?
questions.
Okay, all right, good. All right, take it away, Nathan.
All right, so I put up some browsers here. This is our Jumpstart Robotics window. This is kind of the main landing spot for the presentation that we're giving. And but this is what a GitHub repository overview page looks like. So there's some tabs up here I'll go through kind of quick. On the code tab, you can see all the files and the readme.md, and this is a markdown file. We probably won't get into what that means, but it's a file that has a little bit of formatting and shows up on this screen. There's an issues tab where you can put in an issue. Yeah, someone's put in an issue for us. Pull requests. So if someone forks our repository, makes a change, and then opens a pull request, this is where we would pull it back into our main repository. This is what we would recommend for when you're working on your robot code. We'll get into that here in a second. Actions is like workflow associated with code changes, kind of on the deep end of the swimming pool that I don't know what I'm talking about there, so I'm going to skip over that. Project boards is creating like here we created a task board on things we needed to do for this presentation. So pretty cool ability to move things around, and so we got some of that going. A really helpful tool for keeping track of tasks and projects. Wiki, you could create documentation here that your team could see. Security, just around like who has access to it, I believe. Insights, stats, and metrics on your repository, and then settings. We'll get into that in a second here. So I'm going to, over here, I'm signed in as my personal GitHub. So I'm going to, and I came to this Jumpstart Robotics GitHub demo repository. It's public. Let me just make sure I'm okay. So I'm going to do what's called forking this repository. I'm going to take a copy of the Jumpstart Robotics repository right here, and I'm on the screen. Let me just make this big, and I'm going to say I'm going to fork this repository, and it makes a copy in my GitHub account of this repository, and then on my local computer, I'm going to clone this repository and have it in a working spot on my computer. So I just knew this URL here, but if you go to code and you can copy it. Let's see. So you can copy this and it does the same thing. So I just pulled down this GitHub demo, and I'm using old school DOS commands, and you can use that. That's command line. You could use Visual Studio Code. This is what we're doing here, and you can get to it that way. I'm just gonna keep with the old style here for just a second, and I'm gonna make a quick change. So I just forked this repository, made my own copy. I've cloned it, pulled it down to my local machine, and now I'm gonna make a small change, a code change, and then I'm gonna commit that. So this is kind of the workflow. You would fork a repository one time, and typically you would clone it one time ever.
Hey, Nathan.
Yeah.
Just a quick point. Can you explain a little bit on the command thing you're using and explain to that kind of needs to be installed on there when you install it with the Visual Code or Visual Studio that I use there work? Because I don't want to lose students on this because it's kind of important step here you're trying to do, the different methods you can do.
Sure. In our right here, this install Git SCM. This takes you out to, I'll just click it and open it here. This takes you out to the Git. Git is an open source software package that Jamie was talking about. It's free for anyone to download and install. And so you would come out to this Git SCM website and download for Windows and install it. And it would give you a command line ability to use Git. There's also Windows GUIs, so like a visual way to do it. So there's some options. This is the old school way that I'm using right here, and this is kind of how I use it. So you can use it in Visual Studio Code. You can use the command line or the GUI, the graphical user interface for Git. I don't know, Jamie, anything you'd add?
No, I think you can do most things from the browser. So you don't need to learn this, but you're going to quickly find that this is the way to go. This is how people use Git once they're familiar with it. So it does take a little bit of, I don't know, there's a little more learning curve here than there is with the browser GitHub version. But there's plenty of documentation out there, including on this website you got pulled up. So don't be scared of this. It's pretty easy once you get into it.
Yep. And you don't have to use the command line. I mean, you could use the Windows GUI. It would probably make it a little easier, a little more accessible to use the graphical user interface. This is the I don't know, maybe kind of bare bones way of using it. So I'm just going to make a quick change to one of these files, and just open the file in Notepad, very basic. And I'm just going to say just going to add that Jamie and I were presenting this. And if anyone out there is wants to put in pull request, it's part of the prize a little later. So I made a change to this readme.md. I'm going to do a get status just to see if what's changed. And it says, boy, it's hard to read. I don't know. I can't make it any bigger, I don't think. A little bit. Okay, here we go. All right, so readme.md has been modified. So get status is what I did. I'm going to do a git add just to say these changes are ready to go into the repository. So we're going to git add. Oops, git add, and the dot is for everything that. So I'm going to add everything that I've changed. Then I'm going to do a git commit, and I'm going to put -m, and that's the message. I'm going to say updated readme.md. And let's see how that goes. Okay. So that committed the change that I made to my local repository. And now I'm going to push this up to my GitHub repository. I'm going to do git push. And it went up to my my demo repository. So let's see, I'm going to refresh the screen here. And you can see updated README MD 29 seconds ago. And I put this presented by Nathan and Jamie on the bottom. So now that's in my version of this repository, but it's not yet in the Jumpstart Robotics version of the repository. So let me just hop back here for a second. So next, to get it in.
Nathan,
Yeah,
before we do a poll merge, I've got some quiz questions about forking cloning.
Okay.
Can we get over to that?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
All right.
sure.
All right, let's start off here. What is a fork in GitHub? Is it an independent copy of a Git repository, a linked copy of a Git repository, a merged branch, a single point in the Git history? Nathan kind of showed forking and cloning. This is a tricky question. And the correct answer is an independent copy of a Git repository. Sorry, I flashed through that really quick. So an independent copy is a fork, a linked copy is a clone.
Can you back it up, Jamie, to reset the timer on this one?
You know, I'll stop. Yeah, I'll stop the timer on this one. So yeah, again, it's a linked copy. A fork is a linked copy. So it's like it's an independent copy. It's like you take the code that is in their repository and you completely copy it and paste it into your own kind of repository that you can send code back eventually. All right, next question. When is it ethically acceptable to fork someone else's public repository in GitHub? Always acceptable, never acceptable. When you know the authors, when you have permission from the authors. This is a trick kind of question. The actual answer is it's always acceptable to fork someone else's public repository in GitHub. We talked about licensing. You can fork it, which means you can grab their code and put it on your machine. What you can't do is modify it if the license says you can't. So it's a bit of a trick question. You don't need permission to fork anything that's out there publicly on GitHub. Forking just means you're taking a copy of it so you can see it on your own device. But to change it or to use it in another way, repurpose it, that depends on the license. And the next question, here's a throwback. What's the name of the robot in 1951 science fiction film classic, The Day the Earth Stood Still? This might throw off John, who was batting 1,000, I think. All right, correct answer, Gort.
Someone got it right. Yeah,
not a lot of 50s science fiction movies. All right, so let's see the leaderboard. There we go. All right, John still has a commanding lead. All right, back to you, Nate.
All right, let's I'm gonna do, let's see, we need to probably start heading toward Q&A. I'm gonna do this one last demo of a pull request. So I made some changes, minor in my case, but you might make a whole bunch of changes. Then you do a pull request to send them back to the main repository. And let's see here. So here we are. This is my repository, my personal copy. It says this branch is one commit ahead of Jumpstart Robotics main. So I'm going to do a pull request. New pull request. And it's going to show me what I've changed. It's not much. And it would recommend like a code review. If we're doing this inside of our company, we typically would do a code review. I would say you don't need to do that. Up to you, but up to your team. but because you can get back pretty easily to previous versions. So I'm going to create a pull request. I'm going to say what I did, made a small change to README MD, and I'm going to create the pull request. And then the owner of the, let me see here, where are we at? This one. Oops. The owner of the repository will see that there's a pull request. So I'm now on GitHub as the owner of the repository. I see a pull request, and I see that I made a change. I'm going to click in here, look it over. You can see one commit, one file changed, looks pretty good. And I'm going to say merge this pull request. And now this code change is now in the main repository. So you can see it just shows up right there. There's a lot that we just shared, but I'm gonna pause there for questions. I think we got a little bit more trivia, right, Jamie?
We do, yeah. I don't know if we have time for it.
Well, we gotta get to the last one. So how about this? What do we got? 3-4 minutes, Kayla?
Yeah, we just want to wrap up by 4. So
Okay.
we've got about 7 minutes before we'll send them on their way for a break and then the next session.
Okay. Yeah. Unmute if you want to ask a question or put it in chat. I think the first RS first, the Medtronic. I think this presentation will come out with the rest of them in a summary email, be available. All right.
It looks like a question just came through chat. Do you see that there, Nathan?
Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
You want to make sure we
So-
read it out loud so the recording gets it?
Yep. So Todd asking, GitHub no longer supports password auth for Git clients. What can teams do on shared computers? Oh, interesting. Some schools have SSH blocked on the school networks. Do either of you know anything about this change? Wow, great question. I can't say that I do. Jamie, do you know?
No, I do not know much about that. Does anyone on this call know something about that or have a workaround for their team? I know a couple of people are using Git.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there because it's come up before, and some of these schools block so many things that we have a number of students can't push code. They have to bring it home or something. If they have it on their personal laptops, they can do it. But the school laptops or the team laptops that we use usually have issues with that. And I was just wondering if you guys have experienced anything like that, because most of our work networks are made to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
I know the team that I mentored for kind of had a similar issue. Everything was blocked at their school. Somebody used a mobile hotspot in the robotics room, and so we were just using cellular data, and that seemed to work for our team. So not a great cheap option, but
That's a great question.
yeah, really good. Anybody else? We can.
Why don't we hop to some trivia, and if we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more after the trivia, and if someone thinks of something.
All right, next question here. Which of these statements is true?
Need like a drum roll there. Wow.
All right, correct answer, you guys. Got it. It's a pull request can be acted as a form of review and approval. So like Nathan was showing, you can kind of see the changes, and whoever has the ability to do the merge can do the review and approval while they're looking at it. Next question. Who can accept or reject code changes introduced by a pull request? Is it anybody? Is it the repository collaborator, only the pull request initiator, or only the repository owner? This one surprised me a bit when I looked into this. Answer is any repository collaborator. So anybody you give that role of collaborator can has the ability to accept or reject pull requests. And our last one, how many points is the Z tile worth in Scrabble? Less of a STEM question, more of a end of trivia question. Wow, people knew that right away, some people. And it is worth 10 points. Start learning your Z words.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
All right. John L hung on for the win. So John,
Excellent.
you can send me a private message in Zoom with your jacket size. We've got a nice little First Robotics jacket to send out your way. I can make sure that that gets delivered to you.
Awesome.
Did we have any pull requests, Nathan, on the repo?
I was just gonna go check here. Let's see. Format. There we go. All right. We did not have any pull requests. If you want to hop into our repository, you can fork it and send us a pull request. We'll bring it. We'll integrate that. And we, I was going to cover one real quick thing. We got 1 minute. Under settings, you can add. Yep. Never mind. Won't do it now. you can add collaborators under this manage access. So it's pretty cool. So if you want to come out to our site, it's here on GitHub. You can search for it, and it's in the footer on the presentation. And hopefully this will get sent out. There's some for digging deeper how to use Git from FRC and some other options. So thank you all.